Hello, everybody. It is me, Keela McCaskill. Thank you for joining me on Who is They. One of the things I want to talk about, as you know, I personally believe that we live in a society that many people are just traumatized by what I'm calling the they syndrome, right? I believe that so many people are listening to the voice of they, and they're never really getting the opportunity to um, pursue some of their dreams, explore different things in life. In fact, I think that they are busy living, kind of like existing, as opposed to experiencing life. We only get one. We only get one life, and I really and truly believe that it ought to be our best. Right, the day before something happens, something just catastrophic, whether it's for the bad or something amazing happens for the good the day before, the minute before was just probably an ordinary day. We don't get a bell, we don't get an alarm. Nothing tells us that life is about to derail. Life is about to be different. Nothing gives us a warning for the most part. And so I'm saying to you that I encourage everybody to live their absolute best life right now, like every day. So if that's a dream, if that's a vision, if that's a book, if that's a song, if that's a idea, if it's whatever it is, you control that destiny. And so when I say they syndrome, so many people are living based off of what someone else will say. Oftentimes we have voices we've heard over the years, or things have happened, disappointments, failures, the ebbs and flows of life. People have spoken into existence something that makes us doubt what it is that we're supposed to be doing. And I, as a woman that has come from, I I lived in the marginalized community. My mom was a single mother who is raising two children with big ambition, like big dreams. Like these children, we had a father that instilled a lot in us as it relates to just kind of going, just go do, wanted us to be something different than the norm, right? And so she had these children that she, was taking care of. And so we lived in what's called Oakhurst Square Apartments here in Tampa. And we grew up there, right? It's like a block away, 2 blocks away, 3 blocks away from the housing projects. So it was like next level housing projects, right? It's right next door. So um, we didn't see a lot. We were not privileged. We did not get to see a lot of nothing. But I did have a very supportive family. I grew up, I was fortunate. And so a lot of the things that we did, we were encouraged to do. And so I think we thought we could do anything, right? We had a dad that supported, we had family that was supportive. So I think we kind of thought somewhere in there we could do anything, right? But then you grow up and you start to see things, you start to see the haves and the have nots. You start to see, you're supposed to look a certain way per certain people's standards. You're supposed to behave a certain way. You're supposed to dress a certain way, hang with the certain people, to do certain things. And so I just never really did subscribe to that, because the only person that I was really, really concerned about making happy was my parent. And my dad said it the most. He was the one that had the most to say about those type things. And so um and he would say, as long as you represent me, you represent me. You make us proud. You represent me. So as long as that was happening, I think that that's the only person I really had to satisfy, or at least he was the most fascinated person in the world to me. So that's what I focused on. And so in saying that, I grew up and then I started going to church, and then I learned a lot there. I had some fortunate leaders, some visionaries. I came up through a very strong background in terms of my existence, my why, my who, my relationship with God. And so that meant something, that was what they call epignosko. That was that deep down in my, as the old people say, down in my knower. I knew that I knew that I knew, and I know that I know that I know that I belong to a God that's omniscient. He's omnipresent. He can do exactly what he said he's going to do. And so in knowing that, I really believe that I have the ability to go and be what it is that he put on the inside of me, go and do the things that he encouraged me to do. And so that's what I chose to do. And so going through life, I hit some pockets where I heard from people whereas I wanted to become, an organization that helps, that we're on the ground, we're providing information, we're providing resources, we're providing education. Here I am, I had a background in lending, I had a background in foreclosures. I had a background in loss mitigation, and then I moved into sales. And then when I moved into sales, I began to, to see some things that happen as it relates to real estate sales and all the things that went with that. From one end, from the originations all the way up to mortgages. And so understanding credit and understanding the economy and understanding how things one impacts the other, when we had what's called a crisis with shortly after COVID, we began to see a crisis, and we start to see the rent. I started to get messages asking me, hey, how did, I want to show you how that happened. Like it really started to bother me at night. I couldn't sleep. I would get messages oftentimes like, hey, my rent went up by $600. How is that possible? Let me show you. See that? They're asking me, how is that possible? And then other people begin to send messages, and then other messages. And then we had some of our council members. This council member is in Tampa. He's a council member, and he was very supportive of me saying, hey, something has to be done. So I created what was called the American Dream Fest, right? There's a workshop. I asked nobody for no money. I didn't ask people to come support it necessarily. I knew I had to do this workshop because I'm getting these messages. These people are asking me for some solutions. And so I had to do a workshop. I did the workshop. It was called the American Dream Fest. And instead of, I typically talk about home ownership, right? Because one of the American dreams is people want to buy a home. The other is people want to be entrepreneurs. The other is people want it to be debt free. And the other was all of the above. People wanted it all, right? And so in knowing that, I had this workshop pending. And so what we would do is we would come and that's what we would talk about. But in this particular workshop, I knew that it couldn't be business as usual. I needed to take on these rent questions. How is it possible? I know that you have a lease. In that lease, because it's your residence for 12 months, it's probably going to be set at a rent. When it renews is where they can bump you up. But in the middle of your lease, there wasn't room for that. What we found when we hosted this workshop was that locally outside of these city council members that supported it, they really didn't want that message out. They really didn't want to talk about rent stabilization. They really didn't want me out there bringing people together to talk through the issues. And so I found that supporting my workshop was discouraged. Well, honey, the message still had to get out. We still needed to ring the alarm, sound the alarm, ring the bell on what was happening as it relates to rents locally. We needed a message to get to the landlords. We needed a message to get to the administration. We needed a message to educate the consumers. I wanted people to know that they were not alone, but I was alone because once I wanted to do it, I needed to go find supporters of that. And that was our elected officials. And I'm thankful for our Tampa City Council at that time. They supported us wholeheartedly. And I know that they had received pushback. Yeah, they received pushback from coming to the workshop. But God saw fit for me to amplify the voice. And honey, somebody came down and we ended up on the Gail King show. Let me show you a clip. Show you a clip. That's why you can't listen today. You can't do what you believe you're supposed to be doing. You can't listen today. I don't care if that they is your mama, your dad, your brother, your spouse. Do not, do not, do not just listen to they. Now, I'm not saying avoid good counsel, because in the multitude of counsel, there's safety, right? But I'm saying when you know emphatically, unequivocally that this was your assignment, this is something that you've been told to do, you know that God supports you in it. You know, do it. Let me show you a clip. I'm going to show you a clip. Let me start it over again.
housing is hurting residents. It looks like a bungalow. As a realtor, Kella McCaskill compares Tampa's housing market to a hurricane's aftermath. Everything you have on your list of requirements. Thousands of people scrambling for a place to stay. All the way to the fence. It may not be your first choice. You may be working on your third. Mark Sussman shows us how the lack of affordable.
So my point is, that's not the entire video. I'll showcase that on my social handles. But what I'm saying is, I wanted you all to see this because it is so important. It is so important that we not listen to the voices of they, particularly when they weren't there when you got the assignment. I'm always encouraged by, and I say this often, for those of you that are not Bible scholars or you don't subscribe to the scriptures, you can appreciate a good story, right? I subscribe to what's written biblically. I don't follow it 100% because every now and then I eat too much, I shop too much, all the things, overweight, overspend, over. That's my struggle. Don't judge me. You deal with your struggle. The Bible said, work out your own soul salvation with fear and trembling. Nevertheless, I understand through the story of Noah, right? Noah, here he is living his life, right? And then God interrupts that life and speaks to Noah. Apparently, they had a relationship. How many of you know if you don't have a relationship with God, you may or may not hear him when he speaks? That nudge in your spirit, you may or may not hear it. You may or may not move when he gives you something to move based on. But Noah did. Noah saw fit to do as God instructed him to do. So I could imagine Noah out there going to obey God, going down to the lumber store, going to get the cedar wood, going to get the screws and the drills and the whatever they had to put this thing together. And as he began to build, I could imagine the GCs over there doubting him, talking about him. I could imagine the contractors over there, the architects standing around, and everybody watching Noah look crazy as he built this ark. And as he thought about it over and over and over again, I'm sure he contemplated many days. Did God really tell me to build this ark? As they mocked him, as his family probably got on his last nerve, as people said all kinds of things. Let me tell you, Noah dealt with they the absolute best, because what he did is he did exactly what God told him to do, by centimeter, by centimeter, by centimeter, by day, by night, come what may, regardless of day, he did exactly what God told him to do. Nobody had ever seen the ark. Nobody had heard the message from God. Nobody else knew the assignment that Noah had been given. So he honestly couldn't take what they said seriously, because he knew the voice of God. He knew where he got his instructions from. He knew the God that he trusted. And for me in my life, I trust my next chapter because I know the author and he loves me. So when he gives me an instruction, blindly I'll jump. When he gives me some instruction, except, sometimes we don't obey. Like Moses got so mad, he struck the rock. I probably get so mad. I'll listen when he tell me not to eat so much all the time. I don't listen when he say don't spend all that money. I don't always listen, but I know when he gives me some instructions that's, a part of my deposit in the earth. And I know that when I do those things, it may take away from my existence in the earth. So when I do the things that he didn't tell me to do, it may take away from my existence in the earth. So what I'm saying to you is, some of you don't have the same struggle I have. You don't eat too much. You don't shop too much. You don't do nothing too much. You all good in that area, but you have a spirit of maybe complacency. Maybe you fear. And when you're fearful, that's false evidence appearing real. Maybe you doubt yourself a lot. Maybe you listen to they too much. Maybe you are, shy and timid, or whatever that is. I want to share something with you. Again, it's Bible. When there was the parable of the talents, right? He gave the 3 people, they had talents. And regardless of how many talents he gave them, When he returned to see what they did with the talents, one said, I multiplied by this much. The second one said, I multiplied by this much. But the one said, well, I know you a hard taskmaster. So I took what you gave me, the one, and I buried it. God cursed him not because he misused what he gave. He cursed them because they did absolutely nothing with what he gave them. We can't afford to hold on to the things that he's put on the inside of us. People are waiting for it. There may be somebody that needs what you may create, what you may establish, the information that you may possess from all the experiences that he's given you in life. And you're supposed to come out one day and it may help somebody else. I'm telling you, don't be that guy. Don't hide what God gave you because somebody said. Because somebody said. Because listen, when I knew that there was something happening with the rent crisis, I just said, I'm going to do a workshop. I'm, I'm going, he's made provision and I'm going to provide a workshop and work towards some solutions. So I invited the people that I thought in this county and in this city could do something about this crisis. Let me bring to your attention what's happening. Let me tell you what the law says as it relates to leases, and then you guys figure out a way that you can put in something in place that we can get the message out to these people that we're not going to tolerate, or we're not going to tolerate some of the abusive practices, you know what I mean, the predatory lending or the violation of the leases or taking advantages of the leases. You're going to adhere to the lease. So we found out by bringing people together, some of the issues were people did not have a lease. They were living month to month. They had some other issues. That it was a nightmare. But what we were able to do, fortunately, is we were able to get people together and we were able to amplify the voice. We did get some assistance from the local city council and the county commissioners, and they were able to put some things in place. I remember one county commissioner, Kim Overman, she put in place where she was helping people with the evictions. I believe she put in $600,000 where she began to help people with evictions, and I believe the city council did put in some parameters as it relates to not rent control, but we did go through some processes and put in, a registry, and where they did work through some of the issues that we were having. It was a slow process, but we were able to get something done. My point about this video is that they didn't want to support. They didn't want to amplify the message. They didn't want to get it out there. But God saw fit that I would end up on the Gayle King show. They were wrong, and we were able to get something done as it relates to the housing crisis that impacted thousands, hundreds of thousands throughout Florida. So I'm thankful that I didn't listen to that. And you shouldn't either. We're going to deal with this day syndrome. In this book, Who is They? That is our intention, to deal with this they syndrome. Don't fall into the they trap. Do your best to pursue your plan and purpose for your life. Pursue purpose versus somebody's permission. Go do it. In Who is They, you find out how. We have a Who is They support group on Facebook. We have a Who is They group as well. I'm telling you, go to www.whoistthey.me and get your book. We are also on Amazon. Yay! We're on Amazon. So go to whoistthey.me, get your copy of the book. Go to the support group on Facebook. Follow us on TikTok. We are going to deal with Who is They. We're going to have merchandise. You're going to share with everybody you know. We're going to deal with Who is They. All right, family. Thank you so much for joining me today. I cannot wait till we start to hear your stories. Please share victories as you go through. We also have, just so you know, we also have the Mind Sifter 31-day journal. That's transformational journal. It's designed to help you walk through let's just reset. Let's transform the way we think, transform the way we process information when we're dealing with the day. So it's a 30-way journal, 31-day journal, a transformation journal. We're going to work through that on how we deal with day. There is also a Facebook for the 31-day mindset journal. We transformational journal. We have to sift it, sift sift through the things. In the Bible it says whatsoever things are good. Like when we hear words, let's take it through and process it through the sifter. We're going to deal with they. We have the 31-day transformation journal, and we have who is they, all on Amazon. And you can also go to whoisthey.me. Don't let they stop you from your purpose, your why, your life assignment during your existence here on earth. All right. Thank you.